Hi guys, I'm Nicola McKenzie, founder, mortgage and insurance specialist here at Dun & McCarthy Mortgages. And in today's video, we'll be looking at some of the pros and the cons of saving up to get a bigger deposit to buy a property. Now, before we get into the detail of today's video, can I ask you to do me a big favour and subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell if you haven't already, and that will make sure that you do not miss any future videos uploaded on this channel. Now, here at DM Mortgages, we do not monetize this channel to give you guys the best viewing experience. So to show your support for this channel when the time comes to look at your mortgage or remortgage options, then would you head over to our website, which is dm.mortgage, and there you can book in for a free mortgage appointment with our team to look at your mortgage options. Now, this video is part of a whole series of videos that are dedicated to helping you to prepare to buy a property. And this is part of a playlist that's specifically about deposits in relation to property. So make sure that you check out the rest of the videos in the playlist and in the series. Now, before we look at the pros and cons, guys, it's worth me just stating that to buy a property, you're going to need a minimum of at least a 5% deposit, okay? Now, that deposit could be coming from you personally, could be a gift or from other sources, but ultimately a lender is going to want to see you contribute something to the purchase. Now, you might even need more of a deposit depending on many different factors. For example, your job status, your visa status, your credit score. So the deposit that you need as an individual is individual to your circumstances, and different lenders are going to require different levels of deposits depending on your situation. But what I want to do in today's video is just take a generic look at some of the pros and cons. If you've got to a point where you've got at least a 5% deposit and you're thinking, should I save up more or should I go for it just using my 5%? So let's take a look at some of those pros and cons now. Now, the first benefit is that a bigger deposit is going to mean, generally speaking, that you're eligible for lower rates of interest. Now, I've just filmed a video about what loan to value is and why it's important to understand when you're taking out a mortgage. So I would advise, if you want to know more about this particular point, you check out that video. But generally speaking, the amount of deposit that you put into a property is going to influence the loan to value. The loan to value is the mortgage amount expressed as a percentage of the property's value. And the lower the loan to value is, or in other words, the more deposit you put in, generally speaking, that's going to mean that you may be eligible for lower rates of interest. Now, lenders do make it a little bit more complicated than that, in that they would generally, using a tier system, set certain products around a maximum loan to value of 90%. So for example, if you've got a 10% deposit, you then start to qualify for a certain rate of interest that's often going to be lower than if you were using a 9.9% deposit, in which case you'd be qualifying for products with a higher interest rate because you'd fall into a higher loan to value bracket. So generally speaking, without overcomplicating this point, but the bigger your deposit, it can often get you a lower rate of interest. Now, another benefit to saving up a bigger deposit is that it is going to mean, again, depending on what loan to value bracket you fall into, it is going to mean, generally speaking, and I am generalizing here, that you're going to have more mortgage lenders to choose from, okay? So when we look at the products that are available for those using a 5% deposit, there's less products available than if you were using a 25% deposit, because it's less risk to the lender the more money you're putting into the purchase. So the more money you put down, the less risk to the lender. That means that there's going to be more lenders willing to offer you a mortgage. Now, another reason to contribute a bigger deposit when you're buying a property is that, of course, the more money you put down, the less money you're going to have to borrow. So naturally, that generally, and again, I'm generalizing here because it depends how long you take the mortgage out over, but generally speaking, that is going to mean that because you're borrowing less money, you're going to be able to pay that money back quicker, and that generally means that you're going to pay less interest, because the quicker you get rid of your mortgage, the less interest you'll pay, in that you're borrowing the money over a shorter period of time, generally speaking. So of course that is a benefit to putting down a bigger deposit. Now, another benefit to putting down a bigger deposit is that it's going to reduce the risk of negative equity. Now, negative equity, I'm going to give you a brief summary, essentially means, let's say that I have got, I'm taking out a mortgage for £190,000 and the value of the property is £200,000. Let's say that the value of that property drops and I still owe £190,000, but now the value of the property is reduced to £185,000. That means that I'm in negative equity. So if the value of the property falls below how much you owe on your mortgage, that is what is called negative equity. Now, the reason that that's a problem is because if I come to sell that property, then that would mean that I need to find an extra £5,000 to owe the bank, because sale of the property is not going to be enough for me to cover the full amount that I owe on the mortgage, okay? Now, negative equity isn't something that is going to affect you if you're not looking to sell your property, okay? Because it's just figures on paper, right? But if you're looking to sell your home, then negative equity is obviously going to impact on you, because like I say, you're then going to still owe the bank a certain amount of money. So to avoid the risk of negative equity, putting down a higher deposit can help mitigate that risk or certainly reduce it. And again, that goes back to the point that I mentioned at the beginning, that lenders will perceive those putting in a lower deposit as higher risk because there's more risk of negative equity. As a viewer of this channel, I assume that you're considering purchasing a property in the near future. So it's important for you to know that DM Mortgages are an award-winning team of fully qualified mortgage brokers that provide advice to clients all over the UK. Now, we spend countless hours making free content for YouTube and other social media platforms to help to give you guys sound and useful information to make sure that you're in the best position to make informed decisions. To support this channel, when the time comes for you to consider your mortgage options, we want you to book a free online mortgage appointment with a member of our fully qualified mortgage advice team. Because without your help and support, keeping this channel going simply isn't possible. Now, we searched thousands of mortgage products from high street and specialist lenders to find the right deal for your circumstances. And we also provide a free will writing service to every DM client. So head over to dm.mortgage and book in for a free mortgage appointment when the time comes. And also make sure that you subscribe to this channel if you find the content useful. But for now, let's get back to the video. Now let's look at some of the drawbacks to saving up a bigger deposit. Depending on how long it's going to take you to save up that bigger deposit, of course, it's affecting your time scale in terms of how quickly you can get onto the property ladder, okay? Now, going back to the earlier point that I mentioned, in that generally speaking, a bigger deposit gets you better rates of interest, that is not always the case. And that's why I say it's not always necessarily going to benefit you significantly getting a bigger deposit. So hear me out on this. Let's say that you're buying a property using a 5% deposit. The property value is £200,000, so that means that you're going to borrow 190k from the bank. If you were to save up a 6% deposit, okay, then that is not going to mean that you qualify for lower rate products, because banks generally start to reward you once you get to a 10% deposit. So the difference between a 5% deposit and a 6% deposit isn't in most cases going to change the rate of interest that you're eligible for. Now, yes, of course, it is going to mean that because you're borrowing less money, you are typically going to pay less interest, but the saving could be very, very marginal. So I think when you're weighing up should you save a higher deposit, it really depends how long it's going to take you to save up that higher deposit, but also how is that going to improve your situation, because it may not be a drastic improvement, in which case it may just be better to act now given the smaller deposit. Now, another drawback to saving up a bigger deposit is, again, you have to consider your own personal circumstances. Now, if you're in rented accommodation, then again, you have to look at, do the benefits outweigh the costs? If you're in rented accommodation, the reality is that you're paying potentially somebody else's mortgage, or you're not seeing any benefit or return on that investment. Every month that you pay that rent, you're not getting anything back for it. So again, if it's going to take you another year to save up that bigger deposit, and in that year you're paying rent every month, again, the benefits may not outweigh the costs. So again, if you're in rented accommodation, you just have to take a long and hard think about how long it's going to take you to save up a bigger deposit, and look at factually what a bigger deposit is going to do to improve your situation. And only then can you really make an informed decision as to whether or not you should save up that bigger deposit. And in that decision making process, I think that you need to involve a professional, because again, we can tell you exactly whether it's, what the benefits are of you saving up a higher deposit, how long is that going to take you. We can look at that together with you and say, okay, well, realistically, if it's going to take you another year to save up an extra 10k, that's only going to put you in a position where you can do X, Y, and Z, and that may not be worth waiting that year. Okay, so you really just have to look at your situation on an individual basis. Now, another drawback is, again, what are the sacrifices? And only you can answer this question. What are the sacrifices that you're going to have to make to build up that bigger deposit? It could be an impact on your lifestyle. Is it going to mean that you need to take on a second job? Is it going to mean that you're going to have to do a lot more overtime? How is that going to impact on your lifestyle? So this all needs taken into consideration when weighing up whether or not you should save up a bigger deposit. Now, in summary, whether or not you should save up a bigger deposit to buy your next property is a personal decision, and it's going to depend on your personal situation and your goals when it comes to buying a property. But I hope that video has gone some way to helping you weigh up some of the pros against some of the cons. But again, I would strongly advise, before you make any hard and fast decisions, that you check in with us, get some mortgage advice to see what the position looks like if you were to act now on your smaller deposit. How long is it going to take you to save up a bigger deposit, and what benefit or how might it improve your situation from a mortgage perspective by saving up a bigger deposit? Because as I've reiterated through this video, it may not make much of a difference at all to your situation and to your mortgage options. So there's a lot to weigh up. Get the help of a professional. Head to our website, which is dm.mortgage, and there you can book in for a free mortgage consultation. And we are passionate about helping you and working with you to put you in the best possible position to purchase your next home. Now, also make sure that you check out the other videos in this playlist and in this series, because as I mentioned, there's a whole series of videos dedicated to property deposits and helping you to prepare to buy a property. Also, of course, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you haven't already, so that you never miss any future video uploads. Thanks guys, and I'll see you soon.